Welcome to the Messy City Podcast, where we talk with the people who design, plan, build, develop, or even just think about how to create beautiful, successful, and humane cities and towns. Let's learn from each other and create places we truly care about. Welcome back to the Messy City Podcast. This is Kevin Klinkenberg. Got a great guest in studio today, my friend Terrell Jolly joining us. Terrell's one of the great small builder, small developer champions here in Kansas City. So, TJ, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Man, I'm honored. Thanks. Anything for you, Kev.
Well, careful what you offer. So TJ is really unique and interesting in Kansas City because he's done a lot of work now for a lot of years in parts of town where other people are reluctant to do work, and also really bootstrapping stuff.
That's an understatement.
So, but before we get into all that, I do want to talk about, I think there's going to be a lot here that's like the good, the bad, and the ugly of trying to bootstrap small development.
Yeah.
But I also like people to know a little bit about you, like just as a person. So you're not from Kansas City originally.
No.
You're from Detroit.
Yep.
Right?
Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
I arrived here in Kansas City, February 25th, 2009.
What brought you to Kansas
City? Approximately 8:43 a.m.
Just approximately.
Yeah. I originally came to Kansas City, or the Kansas City area, because I was operations manager for a lumber company called Slauson Manufacturing. We were a subsidiary of Georgia Pacific.
Okay.
And they said I was coming to Kansas City, but it was actually Pleasant Hill, Missouri, which is drastically different.
Very different. Yeah. Yeah. Pleasant Hill's a little town
Yeah.
on the very edge of the city.
It was drastically different. And been here ever since and love every aspect of it.
So what was it that kept you here then? Because you could probably go anywhere at that point.
Yeah. I came here as a single guy, didn't know anyone. Ended up bumping in and meeting my wife. And when we purchased a home, that was a game changer for me, essentially in drastically different ways. One being that I got a home and I have roots now here, but also having a conversation with the broker. And that was my introductory to understanding and fumbling across property management. So that was my entry to what I now know as incremental development, was through property management.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So just backing up for a second, what growing up in Detroit, Detroit's obviously famous and infamous now for a lot of things.
Drastically, yeah.
What was that experience like for you growing up in Detroit?
Well, what's the beauty of just about life or the world is like urban core is urban core. So I was born and raised in the urban core. West side of Detroit is similar to east side of Kansas City in drastic different ways. What our truth is 8 Mile Road.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to sound so cliche about the Eminem, but that really is like the divide.
Yeah.
To separate, your suburbs or your more wealthier side of town versus you go to the other side of 8 Mile. It's a little bit different. Our east and west was separated by Woodward. What's famously known about Woodward is the Woodward Cruise in regards of cars and different things like that. So, growing up in Detroit is very similar to like your urban core. But what I will say is that a different lens is that you saw more progression in people that look like me, being an African American in prominent situations.
Yeah.
So it was more exposure from economical standpoint. You've seen drastically different than you kind of saw in Kansas City. Or seeing in Kansas City, it's like people were doing some big things. Our mayor was Conway Young, one of the
Hmm.
first African American mayors in history in Detroit, and then it's just more of a grit, just a little bit of a grit of just people getting some different things done. So I think that's like the difference,
Interesting.
or in similarities in some ways as well.
Do you feel like did you get a taste at all when you were there of like the building development side of things that got you interested in it?
Well, what really motivated me about understanding just real estate in a whole is understanding that like my father was an entrepreneur all his life,
Hmm.
and he did well by us, right? And my mom worked for Social Security, but even with the success that they both had as individuals, we never owned a home,
Huh.
and I find that interesting looking back. And maybe one of the reasons we didn't own a home is because my grandmother owned a home. We call them duplexes, but two-family flat,
Right.
where we lived upstairs, and then my uncle and everyone lived downstairs, and my grandma had relocated to the south. So maybe it wasn't an urgency or need to want to own a home, but I did attend like a church in a suburb that's equivalent to Overland Park or at least Summit here,
Yeah.
and seeing kids my age going back to these beautiful homes, and then I'm going back to the hood in a two-family flat with one bathroom.
Yeah.
So to me, that inspired me in a way. I'm saying I don't want this, right? So what does it take to me, even before I had kids or anything? What it takes me to achieve where I can have multiple bathrooms or a
Yeah.
decent place to
Yeah.
live.
No doubt.
So once I understood the power of having an asset and controlling the asset, and then eventually understand the wealth building that can happen with that, it just pushed me to the edge. Like I got overly motivated at that point.
So fast forward to Kansas City, and you're doing property management,
Yeah.
and how does that go, and how does that lead you into start to want to renovate houses yourself?
Yeah, so not being from Kansas City, not understanding the truth divide or any of those different things that I'm well aware of now and well versed
Mhm.
in. Yeah, I was given the ideal by my former broker, and the person that actually sold me a house that I think had some random clients at that time where different people were asking about property management, and I felt really overconfident, to be honest with you. I felt real cocky because I was finishing up my MBA, and I was like, yeah, I can figure out property management business. And
Mhm.
I did some research, this way before Chat GPT or anything. You just went on the World Wide Web, and I saw some property management agreements, and I presented this ideal, you know, integrity capital management, and this is what we can do. And he said, okay, great, you got your first client. And I'm never gonna forget that. That was 3/29, 2013, 11:43 a.m. I'm never gonna forget that either,
Hmm.
because the simple fact that that was when I hit the incorporating on the Missouri website. I remember that was when I said, "We guess we in business." And I had the first right client. My first client was a prominent judge by the name of Judge John Gray, and his wife, Dr. Chow. And I didn't understand at that time how this set of presidents, but they had a home on 54th and Harrison. They won through an auction, and
Hmm.
I didn't know what was the big deal about this home, but I noticed when I put the sign in the yard, my phone went ballistic.
Hmm.
It went crazy, and the reason it went crazy because that was the only home on that block that was not owned or controlled by UMKC,
Uh,
and people literally were just calling and emailing. It was just going crazy, and I never forget it. A parent came with their daughters, and they paid me for a year
hmm.
first day, and I'm like, oh yeah, this property manager, I could do this all day long, even though that's not
Yeah.
what it really
Yeah. It's
was.
all that easy, right?
Right. So kind of understanding that aspect of it, and as they acquired more properties, I had the opportunity to manage more, and really just had the honor and the privilege of scaling the business and understanding investing by managing their properties. A lot of people look down on property management for a lot of reasons, but I'm really thankful that I started on that aspect of it, because all the grunt work, you can't tell me nothing. I can hear a pulse over the phone,
Mhm.
because that's where I started at. And then really understanding the fact of I really want to get into this thing full time, but I'm still building this out and working my full time job.
Okay.
And if anybody know anything about property management, you only 10%. So at that time, I mean, rent was 1,000. I make $100 for all the headaches.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was that, but that gave me the opportunity to get the lay of the land, understanding why this home at 54, and and Harrison was just a big deal. And then as they started acquiring more properties, I never forget the first home they brought on Lydia. It was a different tempo.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as waiting at the door.
Yeah. Were these all residential
Yeah,
properties?
these were
Yeah.
single family homes. Eventually got into some duplexes, but that was the introduction for me because I became motivated, understanding like I really want to do this full time. And I never forget, one of the first bankers that ever believed in me, or believed in what I was doing, was a lady by the name of Debbie Swearinger. And Debbie, I went to Debbie one day. I was like, I really want to get to this full time. She's like, well, you got to put skin in the game. And what does that really mean? Well, you got to own the property that you're managing. Well, okay, how can I do that? And that's when I understood what a HELOC was, a home
Mm.
equity line of credit. And then like the rest was really kind of just, um, a lot of grit, just kind of figuring that part out.
So what was that first one you tried to own on your own?
So the first one was, this was on 54th and Harrison. I was managing. I'm never gonna forget it. 55th and Woodland.
Mm-hmm.
Identical house.
Hmm.
I mean, I could show you a picture of the house on Harrison. I could show you a picture of the house on Woodland. Same front door, bungalow,
Hmm.
everything. Drastically different price.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, that's in Blue Hills community. Blue Hills was really overtaken by REO companies, a lot of companies out of New York. And they would pop up on the MLS, this, that, whatever. I think this house was maybe like 7,000. I negotiated down to $4,000.
Wow. Wow.
and 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 really understood how to speak the language of contracting. And I want to put emphasis on contracting because that was critical for the standpoint of, that's where you can lose the deal. Okay, the acquisition cost was one thing, but what did it mean for me to actually purchase the material and control the labor? So I took some losses and bumped my heads a couple times, but I fumbled my way through that rehab, and then followed up closely with 5543 Park. And those two properties, it's like the mothership that really, um, I learned a lot of lessons, and able to kind of just bridge from there.
So I think a lot of people listening their jaw dropped and may not have recovered since about a house that you could buy for $4,000.
Yeah.
So how do you end up finding a house that is that cheap?
Well, you got to understand that. I mean, we talking about what, 2014.
Yeah.
What people don't really understand, and that's what really bothers me about the city officials or people that live in the city that understand. We don't see the value in our own communities, but other people do. It was a podcast, and it was real popular back then. They changed their dynamics now, but it was called Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
Bigger Pockets advertised that Kansas City is the best and cheapest place to buy property. So literally, you had people taking planes and doing bus tours in the middle of a community like Blue Hills, buying these cheap $4,000 homes because what they were seeing on the coast. Some did something with them. Some brought and sat and just prospect the property until no end. I think it's a document in Kansas City Star, Slumlord Millionaire,
Yeah.
where they talk about this one guy came and brought 900 homes in one fell swoop, and it's just sat on the properties. But all that saying that say is that our market was so oversaturated, especially coming out of 2008, 2010, that you just have a lot of properties that had almost zero value.
So based on the neighborhood, based on
Yep.
that it
Yeah,
was
nobody
such a
saw
bad
value.
time for home
Yeah,
buying
well,
anyway.
people didn't see value in it. People didn't understand the fact that the appraisals wasn't appraising, right? So, like, that's why things were cheap. A lot of them probably was overloaded with inventory and was just trying to
Hmm.
offload them. But the biggest blessing that came out of that situation was not the fact that those homes were cheap, but the fact of understanding community and how do you engage the people around you. So it was individuals that was walking past the house every day that I sometimes felt like, oh, that's why my furnace missing.
Hmm.
But how do you engage them into what you're doing? So that's what I decided to do, and that I end up doing enough properties where I end up bumping into or being introduced to a gentleman by the name of Dre Taylor. And Dre was known for aquaponics on the east side. He was the first one to ever do farming and
Hmm.
goats and had fish and
Hmm.
everything like that. And that transformed my business model forever, from the simple fact of that I met Dre, and Dre, I just still was working at the lumber yard, and we had like really brand new 2x4s that would come on beds of woods that you would find at Home Depot, but they wasn't in inventory. They was just like trash. That's what we consider trash, but they was good wood. And I was like, hey man, if you ever need any wood, and he came out and he couldn't believe it. He was like,
Hmm.
I can have this wood. I said, yeah, you can have the wood. And he's like, man, what can I do for you? And I was like, nothing. Just keep building out these tanks. And he was like, well, what are you into? I said, well, I'm into real estate. He's like, you want a free house? And I was like, sure, I take a free house. But what he ended up sending me was a spreadsheet of all these addresses, some in Blue Hills, some in Oak Park, Tribline, Tribline him. And what was that? I thought I was like, okay, the address, but it had a email for legal aid at the bottom of it. So I called and I
Hmm.
said, hey, I'm calling about the free houses. And a lady by the name of Rebecca McQuillan, she just moved to Omaha, picked up and said, hey, yeah, it doesn't work like that. This is Abandoned Housing Act. I said, okay. And she explained to me that if a property is behind on taxes, if it has code violations, and if it's designated as harmful to the community, you could partner with the community to rehab this home.
Hmm.
And after a year of attending every community meeting, I finally had one.
Hmm.
And that one I didn't think I could actually pull off. I never forget 8 rack is 51st and Brookwood in Blue Hills. Somebody had backed out the case. And the reason people back
Hmm.
out the cases or didn't want to do these cases is because it's very cash intensive. So with it
Yeah.
being cash intensive, um, you can't put any traditional lending in place.
Yeah. And so you can't get the talk more about that
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
this is something we've talked a little bit about before, but
yeah,
I don't know the details like you
yeah,
do. But there's a lot about the lending and the appraisal side that makes it really hard
yeah.
to
So
rip that
so
business.
so essentially, you take the biggest risk you're taking is that you don't have title until after the rehab is done. So you're signing a MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the community that you work in. So, example, this was Blue Hills.
Uh huh.
So I'm signing an agreement saying that I'm gonna essentially risk my capital, get this home up and running once it meets your expectations of the community and what I documented in um, a document showing, hey, this is what was going to be done to the house, and I was at check out, go through the court process. Then you awarded the deed. Now, now anybody know anything about lending? You can't get anything lending if you don't have control of the asset. So you
Hmm.
don't have technically the MOU shows control, in my opinion. Um, but unless you have an actual deed, I can't walk to the bank and say, "Hey, can I get financing and rehab loan to do this?" So I did everything you could think of. I maxed out my credit cards. I didn't tell my wife at the time, but I tapped my 401k. I leveraged some capital that I had through other properties to get through this rehab. But once I get through that rehab, then I was rewarded the title and then, or the deed, and then you can go to a bank and say, hey, can I get some financing? Now, at that time, it was challenging because appraisals, you had to put in boxing gloves.
Hmm.
I mean, you literally had to put boxing gloves because, I mean, you have different type of appraisals. You have C1, C2, C3. The work that we're doing on the properties, we're coming at a C2 appraisal. That's all. The next C1 is new build. So like we going to the studs before we had all these guidelines that we have now. We were doing the work, granite countertops, soft close cabinets, stainless steel appliances, HVAC system, double HVAC systems if you needed it or whatever, depending on the square footage. But I never could get the value because I never forget I got a appraisal on that particular home. And you think lenders really understand. I'm not saying all lenders, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
say that, but lenders really don't understand what I just said about a C1, C2 appraisal. They just say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this was the appraisal say or whatever. But when this appraiser submitted this particular appraisal, it had it as a suburb. And you and I both know Blue Hills is
Mm-hmm.
not a suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it at the wrong housing type, all these different things. And because they were accustomed to doing drive-by appraisals, they didn't know the community. They maybe in Lee Summit or Overland Park or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was just a drive-by and they didn't really want to come in, all these different things. But that was huge to me because I can't get my cash that I had back in the house to get to the next project. So it's been several times that I had to force the lender to and pay for additional appraisals. And what I end up doing, because I got exhausted at going through that process, I would pay for appraisal before the appraisal.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You just preempt it.
I just preempted did it just so
Yeah.
I know my value. And I'm a licensed realtor as well, right? I have my license. So I had the same access to uh, brokerage appraisals, comps, systems as they do. So I know what I'm doing when I'm putting into the home. But I wanted a third party
Right.
appraisal just so I can fight when it came time to get that value.
So all this kind of work, the Abandoned Housing Act is a state law from
State.
state of Missouri.
Yep.
I assume other states have something similar, but
They
I
don't.
don't know. No,
They don't, because
so
I've been doing a lot of um spend a lot of time in Omaha,
mm-hmm.
and I'm explaining it to them. They like, wow, that's
Hmm.
amazing. Never, I think it's exclusively to Missouri.
So it also, like you said, there it presents a lot of challenges, a lot of
Yeah.
difficulties. So what's the motivation? Why would you do
To
it?
me, it's the beauty of it is within our communities is getting rid of blight.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't have to overexhaust my finances from the aspect of acquisition, I could put more money into the rehab. So that should engage, that should encourage you to do more. But unfortunately, with every good thing comes bad things as well. You have those investors or those outside investors that have been some cases of taking advantage of the Abandoned Housing Act. Because the one of the requirements you have to be a nonprofit, right?
Mm.
So the nonprofit that I'm partnering with is the community because every HOA or community is a nonprofit. So I'm partnering with them. So I'm regulated in a way to make sure I'm doing right by the property. That's why I believe in like doing it that way
Mm-hmm.
because we all on the same team. Well, you got people that's creating nonprofits and they don't have to go to the community. They just going in and grabbing these homes and might be doing shabby work or do
Mm.
halfway work and
Yeah.
satisfy. So it's just those different type of things. But to me, it's an ideal tool to use to beat it to the land bank because I mean I don't hold no punches. Our land bank is terrible,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So you can actually beat these delinquent properties to the land bank while they're in decent condition enough to save them and put them back on the tax
Yeah,
roll.
and maybe before it's been torn down
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah, that's right.
So it seems like you got all this cash at risk
Yes,
up front. And how far does that checklist take you? Is it like all the way through renovating the whole house that you got to front with cash,
everything,
and then
everything.
at that point you get a deed, and then you can sell it,
You
or
can sell it, yeah, and so my model is a little bit different.
yeah,
This is the way people say affordable. I say situational housing because I know if I put this on the market, who's stopping it for the next investor or slumlord to come purchase it? Nothing stops them.
mm-hmm.
So back when I first started, I could rehab a full house, full good $50,000-$60,000,
Hmm.
no problem, right? And you could probably put it on the market for maybe 160, 170, sometimes 200, depending
Yeah,
on where you at, and then it could go any direction, whatever the case may be. But what I have chosen to do it for each rehab I did, I strategically partner with like a restart, a community link, or before everything was uproar about Section 8, we always catered to Section 8
mm-hmm.
voucher holders.
Mm-hmm.
So because I believe everybody deserves a quality home, and that's what and that's why I did did it that way. So each time I could save on the acquisition, put quality work into the properties, and then I can go right to those organizations. Because I never forget, I was felt like I was convicted because I had a close friend of mine and worked with me a long time right before she passed away, Tiffany Kitchen, and she was a fundraiser for Community Link, and she invited me to a meeting, and I was thinking the meeting was going to be about like, can you donate money? But they was actually just looking for landlords because nobody wanted to take a risk on that clientele. But I was motivated because the person that was leading the meeting was the board chair that was formerly houseless.
Hmm.
And now this woman had her own home and she had a business. And I'm like, all this time I'm thinking it was the guy on the plaza asking for $1 for a cheeseburger. But
Mm-hmm.
actuality, it's somebody's couch surfing. So I felt like I wanted to really get behind that cause. And that's the way I think I could have served. So that's what I decided to do.
So then you're able to uh, rent to people. So you've got a lot of cash out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
You get a place renovated. You can rent to somebody, but you could refinance a
Yeah,
property at that
refinance.
point,
Yep.
so that you can pull some of that cash,
Yeah. So
back
like
out.
the lack of better term is, and it's the BRRRR strategy. You
Yeah.
buy, rehab, rent, refi, repeat,
Right.
and that used to work really, really well.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work anymore.
Well, tell me about it.
Yeah.
What's first of
Well,
all, like how many houses have you done now?
phew, man, probably a little bit over 55.
Yeah.
Yeah, 55.
Yeah, because I watch your
Yeah.
profile, and
Yeah.
it just seems like every month there's
Yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
new house coming up there or
Yeah, but
something.
it's been slowing up recently. Have you
Yeah,
noticed?
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, probably a little bit at 55, and then there been some opportunities also where, um, outside of the Atlanta Housing Act, and that's sometimes the beauty of property management. You get people that's just tired; they don't want to do it anymore. And I would just buy them,
Yeah.
and instead of begging them to fix it up on their own, I'd just buy them and fix. So, and then you had a season where you had a lot of hard money lenders that was in the market, foreclosed on a lot of stuff. And some, I don't know how they got my name, but I used to could make deals with them and buy homes. So it just led from different things. But I think that's the beauty. Once you kind of get a basis of a portfolio, then you have some equity and you have some leverage to get into some other different type of deals and even get into what people determine as larger deals.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the often things when, a lot of times with um, ULI, the Ready program, people like, these make, like, start with one house.
Yeah, I know those. I mean, it's a great program.
Yeah.
It's well
Yeah.
intentioned, but it's like all
Yeah.
geared toward doing really
Yeah.
big like commercial jobs
Yeah.
and everything.
But yeah, just start with one house and watch
Yeah.
this thing just grow. But it's slow and it's steady, and it's 15 years to overnight success.
Yeah,
It is.
so are most or all those houses in Blue Hills?
So a lot in Blue Hills, a lot in Oak Park,
Mm-hmm.
Tri Blenheim. Never did anything in Washington Wheatley, but I think I got a couple in Santa Fe, somewhere in there, but
Mm-hmm.
heavily Blue Hills, Oak Park, and Tri Blenheim.
And have you sold any of them?
I sold one house on my old time over my career, and I cry because I see it every day.
Mm-hmm.
67 for sale. I cry about the house every day, but that is the only home I sold. One on Van Brunt too, but two out of the whole time I've been doing it.
Yeah. So that background then in property management really led you to a model where you feel like you can manage all those houses.
Yeah. So the thing about it is, I think it's just a business fact. You have to understand what you are to your business. And what I understood what I was to my business is that I'm the business development and I'm the capital. So after getting up to a certain amount of doors, managing for other people, because growing this portfolio is one thing, but
You're still working.
I was still working my 9 to 5.
Right.
And I was still trying to grow the property management. I got to the point where I couldn't do both. So I had to jump. And I when I jumped full into it, I need to be at a certain amount of doors to make my wife feel comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
Be covered salary.
That's a little bit important.
Yeah, and also bring on some help. So I had some help in a gentleman by the name of Jesse Hawks. That's still my operations guy, and And then from there, I was able to bring other people on staff.
How many doors did you feel like you needed to have to make that jump?
Owned,
Yeah.
Kevin, this is gonna sound crazy, but the only thing I needed to prove to myself, if I could have a salary in place for me and Jesse for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the agreement that I made with my wife. I said,
Mm-hmm.
give me 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 year. Like, here, look at the count. Here goes salary for 1 year. If I can grow this because I can be available in 1 year, and then I can make it my salary for the next year. But if I don't make my salary for the next year, then I go get another, go back to getting a job or something like that. And that's the only thing that I was focused on. So once I got that 1 year salary, so it really didn't. The door's not the factor. The
Yeah.
doors are met. So
It's the income that you could
so
generate.
it was that I had enough on that I had 1 or 2 left refis left, and once I did those 2 or 3 homes, I didn't move forward with another project. I did one project and then I stopped and I had that cash. And once I had that cash in hand, then I said, okay, now I can focus solely on this. And by the grace of God, I was able to not only pivot in that way to stabilize to hustle the money for the next salary, but I was also able to land 2 of the largest clients that I never thought it was even possible for me to keep going and
Mm-hmm.
even add more staff. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit of a risk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always a risk going to work on your own.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Even a little risk feels like a huge risk.
Yeah, but then like, to be honest with you, I think the biggest risk is working for someone.
Yeah.
Because I never forget my wife is an engineer and she worked at this firm and doing very well. I thought she was amazing. They sent her out talking to kids and she did these projects and everything like that. And then one day they said, "Hey, we don't need you." And I was like, "Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's not how that's supposed to work."
Mm-hmm.
But lucky my wife have a great skill set and ended up pivoting somewhere else. But after I saw her face and she was depleted and I felt like that was a little bit of her identity.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't want that. I don't want that for her. I don't want that for me or whatever. And that's what I think about all the time now. Like as I'm out here trying to grow the business and create opportunities for myself and others, is that like I can only find myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean that's a great point. I think people don't think about that a lot.
No.
You think I got this job, I got this comfy W-2 thing. You don't think about the fact that it could end. Like it could end for 10 different reasons that have nothing to do with you sometimes,
Yeah. And you could design, you really have the power on how much money you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
I can go really, really hard
Mm-hmm.
and, make a certain amount, or I can be like comfortable or not working. I mean, that's the beauty of it,
Yeah.
That's the beauty.
I mean, I think about my dad in that regard sometimes because he worked for this one company uh, pretty much his whole career for 35 years.
Wow.
And he was in management. And then one day the company got bought by another company and they axed all the management.
Yep.
And just like that, he's gone. He's out, he's got to find a new thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you never know.
You never know.
Nope. So you talked about that. It's not working now. It's harder now. What's going on? What has changed that has made doing this model harder?
And it's several different variables. I mean, I can easily point to finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
DSR is now in play on every deal with every bank. The average you're seeing right now is 1.20, 1.25, which is meaning now the requirements over what you're investing and what is going to be what used to be an 80% loan to value is really 55, 60.
Mm.
So your cash is going to be stuck in the deal more. They want way more skin in the game than I think is necessarily needed because again, the rents are being collected on my properties. I can't speak about anybody's property. They guarantee rents as of now, but they guarantee rents, right? And we're very good at operating the properties, weekly analyzing them, who's behind, who's not, what can we get them help, all those different things. So we really hands on. So I don't understand why we get it underwritten in certain ways, right? So you have to always plead your case with that. Um, Times that with I feel like I can control labor a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have some resources, some guys that have been with me some time, and what's important to them is to keep working in volume.
Yeah.
But I can't control material.
Right.
I can't control material costs. Um, and then the regulations the city put on you. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like on a small single family home, you gotta hire a energy consultant, right? For
That's
these energy
the new
codes.
energy code.
Yeah, for the energy codes.
What's
You
that energy consultant cost?
it really depends on the rehab, right?
Yeah.
But you gonna easy add maybe five and some change,
Yeah.
$5,000.
And
It's, yeah,
what do they do for you?
they just know how to write a piece of paper and point, or
Yeah.
whatever, and stamp, for the city, and then, the architecture drawings on
Yeah.
some stuff is a little bit overplay,
Yeah.
I think. And then how, I'm just curious. I have heard, I have been in part of conversation. I could be quoting wrong, but the average savings is $150,
Hmm.
when it's all said and done. So who does that cost get passed to? The end user.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. I'm looking now. I never thought I'd be having conversations outside of Kansas City,
Yeah.
but having the conversations in Omaha or Olathe or these, or at least some these, and looking at how they run it, different things. They don't have these energy codes.
Yeah.
They decided to go to gradually introduce into the market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I don't understand why is it here where we need the housing most,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff everywhere else is just flying right out the ground because they don't have to combat all these hurdles.
It's frustrating,
It
man.
is. It just doesn't make any sense, and
Yeah.
I can't comprehend people not seeing it all the way through, because you can't tell me you're not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you walking out of your office in City Hall, if I'm walking out of this studio we in right now, we see we are in a crisis. We're in the middle of a crisis everywhere you go now, from the plaza to Brookside. It's
Mm-hmm.
leaking, right? Like you never
Mm-hmm.
think, but people don't have homes.
Mm-hmm.
They have nowhere to go. And it's because of all these different things that we have stacked against us. Um, because of what it costs to provide a roof over somebody's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I kind of I don't want you to work in other cities, but I kind of want you to work in some other cities, like in the area, just because I think I think the benchmark of like looking at how is it easier or harder or cheaper or whatever in some of these other places, and take those numbers and that information back to our city. I mean, because we all probably talk to people who work
Yeah.
in other places, and in our region, everybody has a similar story that our city, Kansas City, Missouri, is the hardest city
Yeah.
to work in by far. But people don't always like share the numbers, like, okay, um, how much longer did it take? How much more money did you have to come out of pocket? Stuff like that. Cause I think that actually would be really useful. And a lot of our elected officials who write these rules don't really know or understand any of that.
Yeah. And I had an opportunity to talk with the city of St. Joe.
Yeah.
And they like roll out the carpet.
I bet.
Like
I
whatever you
bet.
need. How fast you talking with Olathe, 5-day turnaround on a permit.
Mm. So what was the last permit? How long did it take for you to get it here?
45.
45 days for a house renovation.
45. Not ground up.
So then this is like, TJ, this is why people say they don't go get permits. They just do it.
And I have to be honest with you. Early on, I would used to position it where I had enough permits just to have some documents so I can go.
Yeah.
Not to pull it, because it's no way. I used to get in a house in and out 60, 70 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you saw the clips really rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But now, oh, you can't get Spire to come out unless you got a certain permit.
Yeah.
And those houses I did back then are still the same quality.
Mm-hmm.
Generations have been raised in them. now, all this, whatever. So what are we really achieving?
I
That's what I'm
know.
trying to figure out. And I refuse. I don't want to be in politics at all. And I just don't. I don't know how to sugarcoat things. I'm a straight shooter on a lot of different things. But like, why we can't just do the right thing? That's the only thing I just don't understand. Like, why can't we just do the right thing, allow things to flow, and take the same risk that we are constantly talking about? One light, two light, three light. I mean, those type of projects, they roll out the red carpet.
Mm-hmm.
The people that just purchased the I was at an event. The people that just purchased the plaza, Kansas City is the best people to ever work with.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I get, but I mean, that's just like, I hate to say it, but money moves everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And from where I'm at in my business, or incremental, or however you want to put it, uh, I don't have capital to throw around just to
Right.
get a permit or whatever to get stuff done. I really just gotta work and wait through those processes.
Yeah, and it's this is one of the things in different like incremental sessions that we've had people teach that they've talked about. Like especially if you're a small guy, especially if you're starting out, you got to consider the city you're working into, and like what there's like the capital risk that you put in place. There's the financing risk, and there's construction risk of whatever you might run across. There's also regulatory risk that is really important. And if you could go work in one city and it's 5 days to get a permit and inspections are easy and everything works well, and another day it's a month and a half and inspections are hard and slow and they don't come when you call them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different deal. And if you just don't have as much luxury for, uh, making those kind of, um, have those kind of allowances when you're just one person or
No,
a small entity.
you don't. And like, literally, you throwing everything you got at a deal,
Yeah.
or multiple deals. If I had to go back, 14 years ago, when I first started, 13, 14 years ago, and trying to start now in this market,
Mm-hmm.
it's no way.
Yeah.
It's no, like, I like, if you doing it now, if you like just getting going now, my prayers to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know what I have done back then. I can't duplicate it. I
Mm-hmm.
can't duplicate it again
Yeah.
without a substantial amount of money.
Do you do any of the actual construction labor yourself?
No, I don't. I don't do any labor at all. I just manage the whole entire process, and now I'm thankful to be at the space now, where I don't have to be the person that is operating on site. I actually hire out for that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I hate to keep referencing Ready, but I want people to really understand what development really is.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that people don't want to focus on and don't want to really talk about is financials.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to be to your business? I can't be the one laying the towel and doing the books.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, and again, it's nothing wrong. It depends on what scale you want to move at. I know
Yeah.
what scale I want to be at, and I can't, like, if I remember at one time when I realized, like, man, I can't. I used to pride myself on moving everybody in the house. Like, I had a lock box, I opened the door and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then I was like, I can't make all of them because now I got multiple move-ins, and oh man, this bank actually wants to talk to me now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I couldn't do everything. So I remember one of my guys, I was like, man, how much do you charge me to like meet somebody at the, he
Mm-hmm.
said $25. I said, okay, $25 each door. He's like, yeah. So, okay, fine. So when I did do it, I'm like, man, I'm worth $25 because I could really be having a 25K conversation
Yeah.
to keep things going, or I can be at $25, open the door. So it's just those different things
Yeah.
that you kind of start understanding when you want to scale a business.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your tenant experience been like with the tenants that you've had? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
using people who are on vouchers, people from some of these agencies that are probably formerly homeless, something like that. What's your experience been
Yeah.
like?
I think everything in this world is pre-COVID
Mm-hmm.
and post-COVID. uh, Pre-COVID, it was a drastically different experience, I will say. Things were way more manageable. The organizations that we were working with had the capacity to have more wraparound services,
Huh.
because that's one thing I understood. is that I'm good at organizing, providing housing, but I don't have the skill set or the education to provide wraparound services. And when you're talking about working with organizations like the one I mentioned, um, you have people that have some mental issues, and challenges and
Mm-hmm.
needs. I can't provide that. So early on, it was manageable. I could pick up the phone, I could talk to the caseworker, they can resolve some issues, those different type of things. Post uh, COVID, it is a unbelievable experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody's at capacity. Um, um, I think a lot of caseworkers are overwhelmed, so they end up just dumping tenants in, or people that need homes, into on your lap or whatever the case may be. So, we had to drastically change a lot of different things. My thing was always, even before the thing came out with the KC tenants about voucher discrimination, I never, that never was a thing for us. We always embraced it,
Mm-hmm.
because what people don't really, I don't think it was really looked at from, who are you really harming? What I don't think they realized, they really was harming the urban core that I'm trying to protect and build up. Because if you're gonna make that like, oh, you got to take a voucher, or whatever, well, the people that got money, they just gonna increase their rents
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No
make
doubt.
it not making that
So the
affordable.
voucher doesn't cover
Yeah,
it.
so
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So you're not protected. But the thing about it, it's a perception that this tenant base is gonna tear down your house or tear it up. That's not the case. The only difference between a market tenant and a tenant that has a voucher is how they pay. You still run your same game. They still have to do a background check.
Mm-hmm.
They still have to meet a certain requirement. And if you feel that they are a risk or you're uncomfortable, you can go to the extent of the law. First and last month rent. So what that means is, if a average on FMR, fair market rent, if a property rents out for uh, a Section 8 voucher, can cover $1,600 on a 3 bedroom, 1 bath. That means if you feel that uncomfortable and
Mm-hmm.
you want that person, you want to take that risk, then you can collect 1,600 plus 1,600. If they come up with that type of money, move right in.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Like, if you feel that like that uncomfortable or whatever the case may be, and they are required, not only the inspections that you do as a property manager quarterly, they have to pass through Section 8, but
Mm-hmm.
Section 8 standpoint. But what most people have is, they say they tear, but you're not managing your property. That's the problem. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to still, if you got character flaws or whatever you feel, run your property management, and it works out every time. But yes, we have had cases where they destroy the property,
Mm-hmm.
but we had the deposit, we had a deposit in place. We try to communicate to organizations. We try to insure it a certain kind of way, make sure they have insurance, because if they do have insurance, then we can go after that insurance. So yes, it's way more work. Um, um, so that's why I think most people have that stigma about those type of programs.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Um, I remember you saying something one time too about how the voucher process itself had some problems.
Oh man, yeah. I think I'm documenting on the news at this point. But um, these organizations, or let's just strategically talk about Section 8. Several issues happen all the time. The onboarding process of a tenant with their vouchers or whatever. Okay, they want you to use an online system. Me and my team, they went to multiple trainings on how to work this system that they had to roll out. That it's no longer paper vouchers. Fine, great. I believe in technology,
Mm-hmm.
everything. The rafter contract comes digitally and all this stuff. But when you trying to onboard the person that's on the other end of the call, oh no, just email it over. Well, no, this is what you said we have to do. So you might talk to one person, then you talk to another person. Turnover is an issue on their end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to jump through that. Okay, then you finally get them on board. You don't know when you're gonna get the payment. Sometimes, sometimes the payment. you have to have the relationships. You have to call people to make sure, hey, like, hey, did you see we got this person moved in, everything checked out? Yes. Okay, well, oh, well, it won't be this month, it'll be the month after. Well, UMB is not going to be
Mm-hmm.
saying that I could wait, hold on until they pay me. That's not going to work, or any other bank, right?
So
So,
the agency controls the voucher, like when it
yeah,
gets
the
deployed.
government, yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right.
but once you get in the cycle, it eventually
Mm-hmm.
works. But then they have a situation where um, we had one situation, and it was unbelievable, um, where we had put a person through the process, got them there, moved in there a year. We get work orders, everything. Like, we go in there and make repairs. We see you when you move in. Whatever. And then this deposit comes every month. We saw like a $10,000 to $12,000 deduction, and we're
Mm-hmm.
like, so we emailing, and oh well, such passed away a year ago. We'll retro taking the rent. I'm like, well, first of all, we never know, because we got a work order as of yesterday that we was over there preparing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, the money you taking out of this pool, you're taking from other properties. So how can you do that? So it's just those different miscellaneous things that just doesn't work, in some cases. And then you have to understand, it's certain housing authorities that you know it's challenging. Like, Lee Summer Housing Authority at one time was the best. Um, they're a total nightmare to deal with, right? I mean, we have went 6-7 months without payments,
Mm-hmm.
and I did all I could do to try to whatever. And that's the other mistake. Okay, they in Lee Summit, but they cover rents in Kansas City
Mm-hmm.
as well. Independence has been really on point. They really good to work, and Kansas City Housing Authority, it's like a roller coaster. One minute everything is great, and then when it's bad, it's bad. So those are the challenges you kind of deal with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny.
Man, like the list of stuff that you deal with and that you go through to do all this, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, and I think like, you either got a whole lot of money or you got a whole lot of time, and I always try to yield to the time side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like, yeah, you have to go through all these different things or whatever. But now, kind of like the exposure of being in different conversations, or hearing, um, or working with bigger companies. Like, I've been working with a large company, and how they do business. Like, oh man, they got cash. You think it's gonna be easy, but
Yeah, it's just a
it's a
different
different
set of
deal.
problems.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a different, like, well, we don't like the address numbers. What?
yeah,
Like stuff that you looking at, like, are we really having a conversation over this little stuff? It's just, and I'm like, no, we got real problems. So it's just mind blowing, thinking like, okay, I'm dealing with all this, but then when you quote unquote get to another level, and it might be bigger margins, it's a whole
mm-hmm.
different dance.
Yeah,
Whole
yeah.
different dance. Yeah.
Um, Last question: you're out there in the community a lot. You're a very visible guy. You're involved in a lot of different things. Um, do younger people especially like come and talk to you and say like how do I do what you're doing?
Yeah, and you know, I take that very seriously, because I never forget, Kevin, when I was really trying to get going. I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to figure out how to do development, or whatever label people put on what I do. And it's several people that I reached out to that I admire, because I'm the type of person, I don't mind to tell you, hey man, I really admire what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, and can I get a minute of your time, or whatever the case may be. And some people met for coffee. Some people never responded, and whatever. And at that time, I took it really personal.
Mm-hmm.
So I just knew that I was gonna figure this thing out. And I said, anytime something happens, like where somebody reaches out to me, I'm gonna try to make time. Now, one thing I did not calculate is, why were those people probably not willing to meet? Man, you only got so much capacity,
Yeah,
right? So thank God for Zoom and Google Meet or
yeah.
whatever. I do whatever it takes now, that I might not can meet in person. I might not can meet for lunch, or whatever the case may be, because I got two little kids as well, and family definitely come first.
Mm-hmm.
But I always try to make a way where we can hop on the phone, or we can have a virtual call, or whatever the case may be, and do it. But the thing I also want to stress is that um, I don't believe in wasting people's time, because at the end of the day, is if you have something that you want to get off the ground or achieve or whatever case it may be, you got to know it's not overnight. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest misconception that we have in our communities across the world with Facebook, Instagram, or whatever. People think it's overnight. I told you how long I've been at this since, like I said, 329 2013. And I'm really feeling like these last 2.5 years, I'm finally convincing my wife that I know what I'm doing, and I
Yeah.
finally have some credibility, and I'm finally um, proving some things to myself. So that's why It's a long road.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long road, and I just really think people skate past that. They think it's HGTV.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's gonna happen quick and fast. It's not sustainable. It's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not real. So I do my best to try to talk and mention. And to me, the younger people, and I can't believe I'm saying the younger people, but they got it right here at their hands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, between Chat GPT and all this AI stuff, I mean, people, we had to try to figure out how to put a performer together. You can talk to Chat GPT and then put it together for you. So if you really want to put a bank package, or if
Mm-hmm.
you want to hunt down a deal, or if you want to land an investor, you have zero excuses in this market. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Well, that's probably a good place to stop. But thanks so much for doing this, TJ. This has
thanks
been
for having me.
fantastic.
Thanks for having
Um,
me. I'll come back and do anytime.
I think one of the things we're always trying to figure out is how do we make like 10 more of you? Because you're still just, at the end of the day, you're just one guy. And we need a whole lot more people doing the sort of stuff that you're doing.
I just want people to believe and know they can do it.
Yeah.
I just want them to know, like, yes, it's gonna be some bumps in the road. Everything is not pretty, but it always works out.
Yeah.
It always works out, even if it don't pencil. Um, and let me just say that before I get out of here. I don't care what your performance is. If you can't execute, it's nothing to talk about. It's never going to line up. I can
Right.
build a performer to perform. I can build a performer to fail. But if you're going to get out there and make sure execute is the key, because you got a lot of people that are out here that are running things off a spreadsheet, and when they get out there, it ain't working. It ain't working because nobody put no will behind it. And you gotta have something that you can't teach. You gotta have the guts.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. You gotta just have the guts and go. If
Right.
not, that's fine. Be an operator. Work for somebody.
Right.
But just know your role.
Right.
Just know your role.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.